As we were doing research for this wonderful project, something appeared, and it just became so amazing how so many parts of the human body, how they are defined in Lashon Kodesh. Lashon Kodesh, of course, is the holy language. Hebrew is an offshoot of Lashon Kodesh, but Lashon Kodesh, which is the language of the Torah and the language of Tanakh, you find so many words that define a part of the body have double and triple meanings and added significance. Let's watch something very interesting. In Tehillim, it tells us that David HaMelech asked, Shomreini ke'ishain bas ayin. Hashem, please watch me like the pupil of the eye. Why is the pupil of the eye called ishain? And the Radak says something that is, you could almost say, adorable. The Radak tells us that any time when you have the letters Vav and Nun at the end of a word, it means a little one. So he says that Ish means man, Ishoin means little man. Now, if you take a very close look into the eye, into the pupil of your friend, you will take a look and you will see a little man. Who's that little man? That's you. So in every pupil of the eye, if you look very closely, you see a little man. That's why it's called Ishoin. And just to go off the topic for a moment, Rav Gifta, when he once heard this, the Rosh Hashiva tells, so Rav Mordechai Gifta said, we learn a great lesson from that. Because when you speak to somebody, you think you're the big shot, right? No. Next time you speak to somebody, take a good look at that person. Look closely into his eye and see, he's the big person. You're the little one. So that's a great lesson in Musar from the word Ishoin. You know the word Oizen, ears. It's connected to the word Moznayim. Moznayim is a scale and a balance. There's a part in the inner ear that is so delicate that if a person hurts that part of the inner ear, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, I think it's called a cochlea, something like that, but if that is harmed, then the whole person loses his balance. Vertigo happens when a person's inner ear is out of sync. So isn't it incredible? The word oizen, ear, is with the scale of Moznayim, because that's what keeps a person in balance. You know what I found interesting? You see this finger right here? The Gemara tells us this is called the etzba. And we know that when Hashem, when we talk about Hashem and Muhammad, we say etzba lekimhi. It was the finger of Hashem. So I once heard something adorable. Why? By shidduchim, by a chasana, you put the ring on this finger. The chasan puts the ring on this finger of the kala. Why doesn't he put it on the ring finger? After all, this is, everybody knows, the fourth finger is the ring finger. So I once heard something so cute. You know why? Because somebody shouldn't think that the shidduch happened by itself. It happened only etzba alekim. It happened only through the finger, through the handiwork of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's why the ring is put on the etzba, to remember the etzba alekim. And somebody added something to that. He said tabas, the ring, comes from the word teva. Teva. You could think, it's natural. He met her, she met him, and then they decided to get married. No, nothing is teva. You put that tabas, you put it on the etzba as a symbol of etzba lekim. Let's go to the letter beis. We know that the word knee, your knee, is called berech. But when you make a bracha, that's also beis reish kaf. You know why? Because when you bend the knee, that shows a sign of humility. And that's really what the purpose of a bracha is, to show humility and thanks to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Watch this. Take a look at my hand, right? You will notice that in my hand, we have, listen, look how many sections in the fingers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Isn't it incredible that the word yad is Gematria 14, symbolizing the 14 sections in the hand. The kaved is the liver. Kaved also means heavy. It's interesting that all the doctors will tell you the heaviest part, the heaviest organ of the body is the liver. So it's interesting that kaved is called liver and kaved is heavy. We spoke in the introduction about the kloyos, the kidneys. The kidneys have to filter the blood. We know that there's an expression in Chazal, kloyos yoyatzos. The kidneys, they give the advice. What do you mean kidneys give advice? Don't you get advice from your brain? Why is there lashon kloyos yoyatzois? And someone mentioned to me something very interesting. What is the purpose of a kidney? The purpose of a kidney is to filter out the impurities of the blood. The impure blood is taken aside, and the person only exists with the pure blood. So basically, kloyos are a filtering process. And when you think of a good idea, basically what you're doing and what you're saying is that you're taking away all the impure or all those thoughts that are not pertinent. In a sense, you're filtering in order to get the right idea and the right function. Listen to this. Lashon. Your tongue is called a lashon. Lamed, Shin, Nun. You know what someone told me? Incredible. The measurements of the teva were 30 by 300 by 50. Lamed, Shin, Nun. Why were the measurements of Noach's teva with the oisiyos of lashon? You know why? Because Noach was faulted because he did not use his lashon to inspire the people to tshuva. As we mentioned in the introduction, or is skin, and or iver means blind, and we said that it's the same oisiyos, it's the same letters to show us that really the skin blinds us and doesn't allow us to see what's doing in the body. That's the purpose of this whole CD, so we should be able to get an insight into what our bodies are really all about. Peh. Peh is a mouth. But peh is also, pei can be pronounced pei, like the letter pei in the Yiddish alphabet. Now, ayin is an I, but ayin, of course, is also one of the letters of the Yiddish alphabet. Now, anybody who knows the alphabet knows that it goes kof, lamed, mem, nun, samach, ayin, pei, right? The ayin goes before the pei, at least, certainly, in the letters. Now, you take a look in Eicha. In Eicha, the psukim are written in Perik Aleph and Perik Beis according to the Aleph Beis, written according to the proper order. In Perik Gimel and in Perik Daled, the order is mixed up. And the pei goes before the ayin. And the Gemara Sanhedrin asks, why is that? Why in Perik Gimel and Perik Daled is the order mixed up? And the Gemara tells us, because they spoke. The Meraglim spoke before they really looked into things. And that's why normally the ayin goes before the pei. And so therefore, that's what the Gemara tells us in Sanhedrin. The Meraglim, they spoke with their mouth before they really looked into whether Klal Yisrael would be able to go into Eretz Yisrael. Here's something fascinating. What is this called? The face. It's called a panim. Panim comes from the word pinim, the pnimius, the inside. Your face is supposed to reflect what your inner feelings are. A person should not appear one way and really have different thoughts. Echad b'peh v'echad b'leiv. Your face should be aglow with what you're really thinking, what your heart is thinking. But it's interesting, the secular word for face is F-A-C-E, which comes from the word facade. So sometimes in the secular world, your face is a facade, doesn't really show what your really inside is. But the panim, the ponim, that's really what it's all about. Here's an incredible thing. We know that there are 4 parshas that are written in the Tefillin. Now in the Shel Rosh, they are written on 4 separate pieces of parchment. And the Shel Yad, the same 4 parshas, are written on 1 piece of parchment, on 1 cloth. So somebody suggested, because there are actually 5 senses that we have, 4 are in the head. So therefore, each one gets a separate cloth. Seeing, smelling, tasting, and hearing. That's 4. But in the hand, there's only one of the 5 senses, which is feeling. So therefore, in the Shel Rosh, it's 4 separate cloths. But here in the Shel Yad, it's all on 1 cloth. We know that a child is created within a woman, and that part of the child, that part of the woman is called the rechem. The mother has such rachmanis on the child. And so it's written in Svarim that that place where the child is created is called the rechem, from the word rachmanis. And one more thing, svasayim, the lips. It's interesting. The border of a town is called svas, like svas hayam, the border of the river or the ocean. Why are the lips called a border? Because just like the ocean has a border, right? At the end of the sand, that's the border because it protects so that the ocean shouldn't come flowing forth. And maybe that's why the lips are also called sfasayim, so that any evil that we may want to say should be shut at the borders. You close down the borders. Rabbi David Gartman mentioned to me something very interesting. The ayin, he said, the eye is like a mayon. A mayon is a wellspring, and the eye is constantly lubricated with wetness, and the eye is constantly wet, as Akiva Bergman mentioned in the section of the eyes, and that is so that the eye is constantly being washed and cleansed. So ayin and mayon. There is another thing that somebody mentioned to me about the teeth. We know teeth are called shinayim. So I believe that one of the doctors had said it comes from shinayim because we get two sets of teeth, and of course the word shinayim means two. Also, shein comes from the word shinoi, which means change, because when you bring the food to your mouth and the teeth begin to bite it, they are changing the context of the matter of the food so that it should be able to be digested. So shein comes from shinui, which means changing. One of the most fascinating things that we heard was somebody said, the Gemara says, piv v'libai shovin, your mouth and your heart have to be the same. In other words, a person is not allowed to say something and his heart is not really into it, or he's echad bepev, echad belev, as the expression goes. He says one thing, but he means something else. So that's what the Gemara says, that you have to have piv v'liboy shovin. But somebody mentioned the piv, the mouth, has 32 teeth, and leiv, lamed beis, is heart, and heart, the lamed beis, is begematria 32. So again, piv v'liboy shovin. But then Dr. Leibovitz told me something, and you saw him on the section of the mouth and teeth from Los Angeles. He mentioned a beautiful thing. He said today the latest studies show that the dentists can see by certain gum disease that people have that whether they have heart ailments. And so therefore, if they are the first ones to be able to pick up heart ailments, we see piv v'libai shovin. What you see in the mouth is the same thing that's going on in the heart, that there's a certain disease or there's a certain problem in the health situation of the person. I asked my Rebbe, Reb David Cohen, what about the connection of dam and damim? Dam, of course, means blood, and damim is money. Is there any connection? And of course, in his great humor, my Rebbe said they both circulate. And then somebody else told me, dam and damim, money and blood, it's very hard to get people to donate either one of them. My good friend Dr. Aaron Price mentions that dam and damim may have a connection, blood and money, because perhaps more blood has been spilled in war because of spoils of money that people wanted to get from other nations. Just want to end just with this one. We know that zokon is a beard, and I mean, who am I to talk about this? But anyway, but zokon is a beard, and zokon is an old man. And I guess we usually associate a long white beard with old men. And maybe that's why a zokon is called, that's why a beard is called zokon, although it's not a body part, but it's something that comes out of the body, and that's usually a person that's older. Just to add one more thing, if I may, if you remember that in the other section we spoke about the lashon, lamed, shin, and nun, and we said that the teva, lashon is tongue, and we said that the teva was 30 by 300 by 50, because Noach was criticized because he did not use his tongue to inspire people to tshuva, and he did not pray for those people who were going to perish in the Mabul, in the flood. So my son-in-law, Hanani Kramer, who actually produced the CD-ROM, he said maybe that's why he had to build a teva. A teva, of course, is not only the ark, but a teva is a word. And so therefore the tikkun of the fact that he did not use the lashon was that he had to use that teva and build that teva. Okay, as you see on the screen, on the lower part of this screen, if you have any thoughts of similarities of the parts of the human body that may reflect or may be reflected in Lashon Kodesh and give a lesson to that body part or about that body part, please either email it or send it to us, and we will be able then, Mitzvah Hashem, when we reprint this, to add your thoughts and comments.